couple days ago, I made a video about things that I thought people on the political left needed to understand about people on the right, some misconceptions that I think they have. Well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And today I'm going to be doing a video about things that people on the political right, whether you call them Republicans, conservatives, Trump supporters, whatever, those groups don't always overlap nicely, but we're going to group them into one large sum for our purposes today. I'm going to talk about things that I think people on the right need to understand or maybe have gotten wrong about people on the left. This is going to be my second in a series of 4 videos. The last 2 I'm going to do are going to be things that I think the right doesn't see about themselves, the blind spots that people on the right have, and then of course I'll be doing the blind spots that I believe people on the left have as well. Now, for those of you who are new to my channel, maybe new to me, I think I'm in a pretty good position to offer some insight into these areas because I was a Democrat for 20 years. I joined the Democratic Party when I was 18 years old and was a very happy Democrat all the way up till the end of last year when I started having a few misgivings about how far left my party had gone, started exploring more conservative viewpoints, considering different perspectives on the world, ultimately ended up going to a Trump rally in February in New Hampshire, right before the New Hampshire primary, and after the Trump rally, I ended up leaving the Democratic Party. I did not join the Republican Party. I am sitting squarely in the middle. So I tend to think that people in both parties are kind of crazy. I think that both parties are two sides of the same coin. And I like to think that I have a perspective on each side of the political discussion in different ways. Fundamentally, I'm a centrist. I have some issues that I lean left on, and I have some issues that I lean right on. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to give 5 things that I think the political right needs to understand about the political left. But before we get into that, folks, if you like my content and you want to support my work, one of the best things you can do is subscribe to my channel, turn on those notifications, give this a thumbs up. Another way you can support me is through a monthly gift on Subscribestar, which really helps to be able to free up my time so I can focus on making content for all of you, making the content that I'm making better, all that good stuff. Now, one of the perks that you get as a monthly donor on Subscribestar is you get a shout out in one of my videos. And today I have 4 shout outs to give. So I want to say thank you to Hulda, thank you to YK, thank you to Aaron, and thank you to Frederick. I really appreciate your generous support. I couldn't do it without you. All right, let's dig into our content, shall we? So the first thing that I think that people on the political right need to understand about people on the left is that the left is not all the same. Not all Democrats believe the same thing. In fact, how I would look at the Democratic Party right now is you have the activists. The activists tend to be on the very far left. They tend to be the most crazy. They tend to be the most loud. But the majority of them, the Democratic Party, is really much more moderate. And frankly, they don't understand how extreme the left of the party, the progressive faction of the party, has gotten in recent years. I mean, for myself, I had basically kind of turned my brain off to politics. I wasn't really paying that much attention. Sure, I had an MSNBC on in my house, so I was constantly living in my echo chamber. I had ideas reinforced that are rather crazy. If you're only watching MSNBC, like, you're gonna have a problem. But you know, I wasn't really paying close attention. I wasn't fact-checking things. I wasn't double-checking what the media told me. I really was just being very lazy about it, for lack of a better word. It wasn't that I didn't care, but I cared about other elements of my life far more. And so I really didn't notice when the far left part of the party was leading people off a cliff. And for people that I still know that are Democrats now, and I will even say this of members of my own family, they really don't understand how much the Democratic Party has changed. They don't understand it. They are not following as closely as some of you are. And that's not to forgive, and I'm not going to make any excuses for myself when I was kind of lazy about politics, and I'm not going to make any excuses for my family and friends are still doing that. But you really do need to understand that the Democratic Party is not just one big mass of social justice crazy town. Most people do not buy into that. The stats that I've seen about people who are on the far, far, far social justice side of the party are somewhere around like 8 to 12% of the overall population of everyone. That includes right and left. 8 to 12% of people are in that extreme end of the Democratic Party. Most people are sitting in the middle. And I think this is really important context, because when I interact with people on the right, or I go to things like CPAC or things like that, what I hear a lot of is people on the right making these broad generalizations about everyone who is not a conservative, not a Republican, as though they are all socialists and communists and just want to fundamentally upend what it means to be an American. And I don't believe that's true. I believe the majority of people simply don't know, and they've been lied to by the media. They've been lied to quite a bit. And so they have certain perceptions in their heads that aren't necessarily true. But I think that they are much, much, much more open to critique and criticism, and they have more open minds than you think they do. And we're going to come back to that point. We're going to come back to that one. Stick that one in your back pocket for right now. But I also want to get into point number 2. Listen, people on the political left, they genuinely believe they're fighting for good things, and they have certain issues that they have legitimate grievances on. And I'm going to point to one of those issues, which is healthcare. Because when I hang out with people on the political right, all I hear all the time is how Obamacare is bad, Obamacare is bad, Obamacare ruined everything, Obamacare ruined everything. Well, guess what, people on the right? You haven't presented any sort of alternative plan to people on the left. You really haven't. And listen, I never thought that Obamacare was the end-all, be-all of healthcare evolution. I thought that it was a necessary first step in the process of making healthcare more accessible and more affordable for everyone. And all I hear from people on the right is, get rid of Obamacare, Obamacare is bad, Obamacare is bad, Obamacare is bad. Listen, if we just look at one of the core issues of the Democratic Party, of the left, access to healthcare, affordable healthcare, healthcare that protects pre-existing conditions, that is an important issue for them, man. That's an important issue for me. That's one of the issues that I still very much lean very left on. Now, the problem is that you haven't given them any sort of alternative. And I'm going to prove it. I'm going to prove on this issue that people on the right have not given people on the left any sort of alternative plan to consider. So here we have Donald Trump's website, right? This is his campaign website. Where can I look for issues? Where is his stance on any issues? Because there's no platform on this website. There's how to get involved, different coalitions you can get involved with, different events you can go to, news, but nowhere on Donald Trump's entire website that I can find, and I looked at it quite a bit, I can't find issues on anything. I can't find his platform on anything. So then what I did is I went to the GOP's website. So I was like, okay, if Donald Trump doesn't want to have issues on his website, well, maybe I can look to the GOP website and find the healthcare plan that the GOP has to address the very legitimate grievances from people on the left who want to see an evolution in healthcare. So I found their party platform. Guess what? It's from 2016. It hasn't been updated at all. Well, you might say, Carlin, they haven't had their convention yet. Fine. But let's find healthcare. Where is healthcare? One of the core issues, again, that people on the left care about. Where is healthcare in the GOP party platform? Restoring the American dream? Nope. A rebirth of constitutional government? Nope. Agriculture, energy, and the environment? Nope. Government reform? Nope. Not until we get to Section 6. And by the way, GOP, you've really got to redo your website. Your website is not responsive, man. Like maybe that's something you can work on as well, because it's like not a well-produced website. But we get to Section 6, and finally we have great American families, education, healthcare, and criminal justice. So now we have healthcare, which again is a very legitimate issue that people on the left have. It's lumped into everything else. So let's see what the GOP says about healthcare, with this amazing healthcare plan that's going to allow us to eliminate Obamacare, which is the great evil of healthcare, is Obamacare. Where might I go for that information? How about restoring patient control and preserving healthcare? So we go down to that. You know what it says for like the first 3 paragraphs? Obamacare is bad. Obamacare is bad. Obamacare is bad. You want to rag on the left for saying orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man bad all the time, every which way. And listen, I'll rag on the left for that too. But all you guys are saying is Obamacare bad, Obamacare bad. You're doing the exact same thing. So finally, I kind of got down here and I started to uncover at least some positions, and we have things like, we're going to promote price transparency. We're going to empower individuals and small businesses. We believe that individuals with pre-existing conditions should maintain coverage. We applaud the advance of technology. None of that is a plan. People on the left have a legitimate grievance with you. It is a legitimate grievance that you talk all the time about pulling apart Obamacare, and you have yet to provide an actual plan for doing that. The only thing in the entire GOP party platform that I read through that comes even close to providing any sort of plan is we've got a couple things. We propose repealing the 1945 McCarran-Ferguson Act, which protects insurance companies from antitrust litigation. That's going to fix healthcare in the country? No, I don't think so. And then medical malpractice lawsuits have ballooned the cost of healthcare. And so we're going to get rid of those medical malpractice lawsuits that are ballooning the cost of healthcare. Come on. People on the left have a legitimate gripe with you guys. You have had years to develop a viable alternative to Obamacare, and you haven't done it. And the reason I bring this up, and maybe this should have gone in my Things the Right Should Need to Know About the Right video, but the reason I bring this up is because it is a legitimate grievance for people on the left. You guys not like having a plan to fix healthcare, to reduce healthcare costs, to make healthcare affordable, to cover pre-existing conditions, to make sure that people in the wealthiest country in the world, this is a legitimate grievance. Okay? It's not a made-up issue. It's not something they're being emotional about. It is a legitimate grievance, and you all don't want to acknowledge that it is a legitimate grievance. And I could do the same thing with immigration. I could do the same thing, I'm sure, with other topics as well. I'm not prepared to for the sake of this video because I want to keep the time down. But the point I'm trying to make is that the left has real concerns. These are not made-up concerns, and these are not concerns that you've addressed. And crying about Obama was the worst president ever, doing all this, it's not going to convince people on the left to come over to your side. It just makes them dig in their heels even more. And that leads me to point number 3, on the note of digging in of the heels. The fact that the GOP and Trump and all these things, listen, I firmly believe that things have gotten so extreme in this country, partially because of all of the complaining and the lack of any coherent plans being presented. And I really think that on issues of healthcare in particular, if you guys had just put forth some sort of plan, back when you controlled everything, back when John McCain was still alive and y'all were trying your very best to repeal Obamacare, I really think that if you had just put forth some sort of cohesive, understandable, simple plan, you would have won people on the left over. But what you did was dig in your heels and just say, just trust us. Just trust us that if we repeal Obamacare, we're going to have some sort of magical plan to replace it. You still don't have the magical plan. It's still not there. And the fact that it's not there sent a lot of people on the left, I believe, and this is one issue of many issues, but I believe it sent a lot of people on the left to the most extreme end of the party, to the most progressive end of the party, to say, okay, GOP, you don't want to play ball here. Well, we're just going to go for universal health care or Medicaid for all, whichever they ended up on, because they genuinely believe that healthcare coverage and affordable access to healthcare and reducing costs for everyone is an important thing to do. So in a very real way, what I want you to understand is that you all have had a part in radicalizing certain parts of the Democratic Party because of your lack of presenting clear, cohesive plans in these areas. Now, here's what I'm going to say, though, about the left, is a lot of people on the left, and I think this is important for people on the right to understand, a lot of people on the left don't understand how radical the party has become. And though I think that people on the right have had a hand in this, I also believe that, it's kind of like, what it is it's kind of like a slow build. When you really, when you're in it and you're only listening to liberal media and all of your liberal friends are just constantly posting things on social media, and that's kind of where you get your news, it's hard to really understand how radical the party has become. And I will say that I genuinely don't think that most people on the left do understand how radical parts of their party has become. And it creates massive cognitive dissonance for them. It really does. It's massive. I see this in my friends all the time, where they literally cannot process information from Project Veritas or things like that contradict this view they have of their party. And you aren't doing them any favors by just saying, Obama bad, Obama bad, Obama bad. You've got to stop, man. You've got to stop. This is a time I genuinely believe that you would find more common ground with more people on the left if you stuck to the issues and you stuck to solutions than you understand. But what the GOP has done, or what the Republicans done, the conservatives, Trump supporters, and again, I'm going to kind of loop them all together for the purpose of this video. What you do is you lump everyone on the left together. You say, and this is back to point number one, you say they all think the same thing. No, they don't. You've got to start approaching them differently. If you started having conversations about issues and about strategies for solutions that were not about tearing down Obama, because a lot of people love him, like it or not, a lot of people love him. If you started talking about issues, you would make so much more progress with getting people on the left to soften their stance. I firmly believe that. And if you talked about what you were seeing in terms of what Black Lives Matter is doing to this country and what social justice is doing to this country and what all the things that are wrong with like white fragility, if you just took Trump out of it and stopped trying to tear down Obama and talked about issues, I think you'd find a lot of friends with people on the left who really don't realize how far to the left their party has gone. But it becomes hard. And this is point number 4 that I want you to understand about people on the left. It becomes hard to do that because the way that they have been treated by people on the right, I'm sorry, they're afraid of you. They're afraid of you. I was afraid of you. I was afraid of people on the right, of Republicans, for a very long time. And it's not what you think it is. It's not because they think everyone's racist, although some of them do. Some of them absolutely do. But it's not because of that. That wasn't why I was afraid of people on the right. It's because you all can be vicious. I don't know that you really understand how vicious you can be. And I'm not talking about the funny memes. I'm talking about the name calling. I'm talking about the aggression. Listen, like people on the left, they kind of throw hissy fits and they act like children. But I've been on the receiving end of pissing off people on the right. You all are far more vicious. You take really low blows. And I think you're doing it because you perceive people on the left to be doing it and you somehow think this is the only way to fight back. But really, you go beyond the line of anything where I can have a conversation with you. I mean, listen, I just quit Twitter earlier today. I basically quit. I didn't quit entirely. I didn't deactivate my account or anything. But I'm over Twitter. And Twitter's not real life, but I'm using it for the sake of an example. The reason that I quit Twitter, and I think a lot of people on the right, and I've actually already heard from people on the right saying, oh, Carlin, I know you're leaving because the SJWs on Twitter, they're just too much. The left on Twitter, they're too much. They must make your life difficult. No, it's not because of that. It's because of people on the right. I have blocked significantly more people on the right on Twitter. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people I've blocked because every time I express, I'm a centrist, right? I have some points of view on the left, some points of view on the right. Every time I express one of my points of view and I happen to land on the left side of it, you guys come with your claws out. It is far more, I won't say terrifying, I'm not really afraid of it, but you're far more aggressive than people on the left. And this has been true for a really long time. You know, if I could erase the word libtard from your vocabularies right now, I would, because you win absolutely no friends by throwing out names like that. I know you think it's funny and you're doing high fives, but man, do you piss people off when you do it. And because of all this, listen, I was afraid. I went to CPAC in February, March, whenever that was. I went to CPAC. I was terrified of being at CPAC. I even met people at CPAC that watched my videos later and they were like, I didn't realize you were actually a happy person because you seemed very mean at CPAC. And I was like, well, I was terrified of all of you. I was really, I mean, that's the God's honest truth. It's not because I believe you're all white supremacists, but because I had been on the receiving end of so many damn insults from people on your side. Even when I was being perfectly reasonable, I usually don't insult people as a general rule, but you guys get really, really mean. And you know what happens? This is the funniest part. I've actually done videos on this channel about some of the things that people on the right have said about me. There was a whole video about me reading insults that I got from Trump supporters on the internet, things like you guys calling me a fat, ugly dyke and things like that. And what the response that I get from people on the right is, Carlin, those are people on the right that are insulting you. Those are secret leftists. No, they aren't. No. These are happening on conservative message boards that don't know I'm looking at them. And this is not about insults I receive, but the defense of these things, of constantly saying anytime someone on the right says something, they're not really on the right, they're secret leftists. Okay, maybe onesies and twosies. Onesies and twosies are people on the left that are pretending to be on the right, and you can usually tell who they are because they use like leftist language, like they call people fascists and stuff like that, and people on the right don't call people fascists. But for the most part, you're just being mean, and you're not controlling your own community, and you're not telling each other to back off or reining in the bad apples. Listen, every community has bad apples. They really do. You're not going to lose any points from people like me just because there are bad apples on people in the right. You're not going to lose points for me. But where you do lose points is where you excuse the bad behavior of those bad apples because it's politically convenient, because you don't want to acknowledge that you have politically aligned with bad apples. And I guess that leads me to point number 5 that I want to make, that I think people on the right need to understand about people on the left, is that if you put forth plans where I could actually understand what you want to do, it's not just like marketing language on a website that's 4 years old. If you put forth plans, if you control the bad apples in your community, if you actually talked about issues and values and not just Obama bad all the time, man, you would change a lot of minds. I really strongly believe that. Listen, I think that the election in November is one of the most important elections that we face. I think it is a question of, do we want an authoritarian approach to government, or do we want a more liberal approach to government? And to my utter shock, as someone that's been on the left her entire right, Donald Trump actually represents the more liberal approach to government. I think it's very, very, very important that he win this election. But you all aren't trying to change minds of people on the left. You're fighting. You're fighting. And you could say, Carlin, the left is doing the same thing. I don't care. I don't care. You have a responsibility to contribute to the outcome that you want. And there are so many people on the left that don't agree with the social justice craziness, that don't agree with that at all, that you are turning off because you say things like, well, they're never going to change, they're all the same, they're all crazy, they're all libtards, whatever. Stop saying that people on the left can't change. I changed. I know a lot of people who've changed. There's a whole campaign around people who've changed. The walkaway campaign is entirely around people who have changed. Democratic exit is around people who have changed. Like what Candace Owens is doing with Blexit, people who have changed. There's the Jewish exit, people who have changed. People change their minds all the time. But sometimes y'all don't make it easy. And when I'm constantly hearing, there's just no use in talking to them, it's like beating your head against the wall. They're never going to change anyway. They're just unreasonable social justice warriors. No, you are not doing your part in this. People can change. Most people are reasonable, but you have to approach them reasonably. All right, so those are the 5 things that I think that people on the right need to know about people on the left. Now, I know I'm on a little bit of a rant there, so I'm just going to review. Thing number 1 is that people on the left in the Democratic Party are not all the same. They do not all believe the same thing. Thing number 2 is they do actually have issues that are genuine issues that they do care about. They are legitimate grievances. They are not made up, and you have to start treating them as though they are legitimate grievances and putting forward plans that are actually going to account for those grievances. Thing number 3 is that most people on the left do not understand how far left the Democratic Party has moved. They really don't understand it. It needs to be pointed out in a more kind, gentle, empathetic way. Thing number 4 is that they are genuinely afraid of you. They're genuinely afraid of you. That's why they're not interacting with you. I don't know if you guys can hear my chihuahua barking in the background right now, but she's having a fit downstairs. I apologize if that makes it onto the video. And thing number 5 is that you've got to stop saying that people can't change and that people are not open to change. They are open to change, but you have to come to the table and give them a better case. All right, that's all I've got for this one. Listen, folks, I mentioned in this video that I am quitting Twitter. I'm done. I am done on Twitter. Now, I'm not going to get rid of my account entirely. That's not what's going on. I'm sure I'm still going to post content there, like things like, look at this video I just did, or I'm doing this live stream, or things like that. But I really don't plan on substantively participating in Twitter anymore or having any more conversations. I just think it's way too toxic. But where you can find me, you can find me in a couple of different places where you can actually interact with me. Number 1 is my locals community. I interact very, very heavily with my locals community. It's a great group of people. We're doing Zoom calls and book clubs and all sorts of stuff. The information, you can also watch all my videos ad-free in locals, by the way. I always upload my videos ad-free over on locals, so they're always there, so you don't have to be annoyed by all the crazy YouTube ads that they put on these things. So the information is in the description below. The other place that you can join me is on Parler. Listen, Parler right now is like what Twitter was like 10 years ago when Twitter didn't suck. There was a time when Twitter didn't suck. It was really fun to be on Twitter in the early days of Twitter. So I am on Parler. My screen name is just my first name, Carlin, and you can find the link also in the description below. So come join Parler. There's lots of people on there right now. The conversations are good. It's pleasant. It's nice. There are no trolls yet. I'm sure there'll be trolls soon. But really, I'm really enjoying my time there. I hope you join. I hope you give me a follow. Mention that you came to Parler from one of my videos and I'll totally give you a follow back and we can interact and hopefully have some interesting conversations. All right, that's all I've got for this time around. I'll see you for another video very, very soon.